So first of all, I just want to reiterate some Zoom protocol. If you are not speaking, please be sure to mute yourself. You can find the mute button if you're on the computer on the lower left corner of your screen where the little mic is. We will have some time for some Q&A later after our panelists go through their presentations and we open it up. More than welcome to speak up or mention in the chat box that you have a question and we'll be sure to get to you. Also, if you have a question during the presentations at any time, please feel free to use the chat box there as well. Just also going to take this moment to first of all, welcome our new guest. Thank you so much for a double thanks for joining us today. And we also just want to emphasize the mission and the purpose of these Greening Your Presbytery calls. So I don't know if Jane's going to be doing a slide. There it is. Great. So yeah, the purpose of these Greening Your Presbytery calls is to collaborate with individuals and churches to become better stewards of creation. And we are doing this by forming earth care teams at the presbytery level to engage and support congregations in integrating creation care into the church's Christian witness and ministry. And we just repeat this at the top of every call because we know that some of you are coming from individual earth care congregations, from individual earth care teams. And we just want to reiterate that this is, we'll be focusing on more large-scale presbytery strategies rather than individual congregations per se. There might be some overlaps, but just wanted to reiterate that at the top. And with that, again, we also want to remind you all that if you have any questions or any topics that you would like us to feature on one of these future calls, please send an email to the Presbytery Earth Care email or put it in the chat box and we'll try to get that on our slot as we are planning the future meetings. And so with that, I believe Erin has volunteered to lead us in an opening prayer. So I'll turn it over to her.
Thank you. This prayer is adapted from Brian McLaren. Loving God, you sent Jesus into the world with a saving love, and Jesus sends us with a similar saving love, a love for the poor and forgotten, and also for God's little creatures who suffer from the same arrogance and irreverence that oppress vulnerable humans. The same forces that hurt our vulnerable humans also hurt the songbirds and trout, the ferns and the old growth forests. Help us to expose and repent of these hurtful forces and create a world where all is valued and made sacred again. Give us the strength and spirit to make this change toward a greater good for all who dwell on your beautiful earth. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that, Erin. All right, so now I will do a brief introduction of our panelists, and we have three guests with us today. So I'll just go down the list of the order that they will be presenting. So first of all, we have Kathy Dean from the Presbytery of the Hudson Valley. Since 2015, Kathy has been the coordinator of the HRP Green, the Environmental Partnership of the Hudson River Presbytery. In addition to that commitment, she also serves as an appointed member of the Dobbs Ferry, New York Sustainability Task Force, and also serves on the Plant at Westchester Committee, a county-wide project that shares best practices in sustainability. A recent project that she helped coordinate is the development of a four village group along the Hudson River that is trying to create new pollinator pathways for the local fauna in the area. After Kathy gives a little presentation, we will have Rob McKeehan. Rob is from Knoxville, Tennessee. His church he's a member of Westminster Presbyterian, which is located in the Presbytery of East Tennessee, which has had an environmental concerns ministry team since the 90s. And Rob has more recently joined in those sustainability efforts. A few years ago, a few people in his presbytery got together to create their presbytery's climate and energy stewardship team, which is primarily supported by 3 churches in Knoxville, Oak Ridge, and Maryville. And Rob is a member of that and representative of that team with us tonight. And then finally, we have Catherine Lynch, who is a member of the Presbytery Investment and Loan Program. She is the East Coast Development Specialist for the PCUSA Investment and Loan Program. She's calling in from Spindale, North Carolina, which is located in Western North Carolina, about an hour southeast of Asheville. So the 3, again, like I said at the top, the 3 of them will be talking about their experiences with solar group purchasing, with grant grant writing, as well as how you all can apply for a low interest restoring creation loan. So with that, Kathy, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, let's see. What happened to my, oh no, I lost the PowerPoint. Let me come back. Sorry.
No worries. Well, if that's the case, we can
We practiced.
We can call an audible. Rob, are you? Oh, wait.
No,
Kathy, you need to open it and then do the share.
yeah, I did open it, and then before when we practiced, and then we lost it.
Yeah, you need
Right.
to reopen it.
New share.
You need to reopen it. Yeah. Is it
Well,
I'm sorry. I'll just type.
Are you sure? I was going to say if Rob is okay with it, if Rob can do his presentation first while you look for the PowerPoint.
Sure. I don't know
Rob, are you
if
okay with
I,
that?
but if that's okay with you, Rob.
Sure. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I stick with the old school. I didn't try these newfangled displays, so we'll stick with this. Well, thank you for inviting me tonight. Hope I'm already interested in what I've heard in some of the introductions of the participants here. I'm sure I'll learn more from you all than I'll be able to pass along. But that being said, I guess start with a little bit of history. Our group in the Presbytery goes back to 2013, 2014 time period. And we got together in a rather unthoughtful, inorganic, or I guess you'd say organic kind of manner. There had been Bill Kibben came to town in, I guess it was the fall of 2013 to deliver to the entering class at the University of Tennessee, the freshman class, an orientation speech. And I think that was arranged primarily through the auspices of the Oak Ridge First Presbyterian Church and Dan Terpstra and others. And in addition to what he had to say to the freshman class, he arranged for a lecture to the general public, and that was held in Oak Ridge. And it was very well attended, and obviously there were a number of Presbyterians there in attendance. And kind of one thing led to another, and we started chatting amongst ourselves and said, we ought to try to pool some of our thoughts and see if we can do some things together over and above what we might be doing individually. We weren't sure what we were going to do, but we thought we ought to do something. And also, it should be noted we didn't have money to do anything with, but that didn't necessarily stop us. So it wasn't too long until we got together. We had good participation, and we got organized eventually under the Presbytery, one of the established missions there, and we identified ourselves called ourselves the Climate and Energy Stewardship Team. Our initial efforts primarily were to advocate and arrange for energy surveys in our local churches in the Presbytery. And that's always a good place to start on moving forward on environmental concerns within your church. And at that time, our public utility, which is Tennessee Valley Authority, had a program that would help perform these surveys at little or no cost. And so our function at the time was to get the churches involved to try to take advantage of that. and we had some fair success to facilitate that. And but it wasn't too long thereafter that program through the utilities faded away and was no longer available. And I might mention, we are in an area under our utility where we do not have any supplements or other things coming from either the state or local governments or the utility that would help on environmental improvements. So we're kind of on our own. So after that program went away, we scratched our head to see what we might try to do next. And what we came up with, we were called the Carbon Footprint Fund. This was a homegrown kind of carbon offset fund. We thought about whether trying to collect money to give to an established fund, but we thought, well, let's see if we can do something locally that would be a carbon offset effort. But in essence, what we came up with was a fund to allow persons in the presbytery or even churches to offset some of their individual carbon impacts with contributions going into this fund that we would take care of. And also it may be coming from churches themselves. And then we would in turn roll that money back to the churches, or when they would come up with projects that would reduce their environmental footprint, carbon emission wise. Usually we were not talking great amounts of money. These were small grants that we partner with the churches to do an activity or a project. And this had, we thought, and still do, several good aspects to it. One is that we were quite confident that the money that came in that was contributed did indeed go to projects that would reduce the carbon releases to some extent. Sometimes when you give to something that you're not totally comfortable with, or you may wonder whether they're really going to keep those forests intact for 50 years, you kind of wonder whether that money you contribute is going to do the right thing in the long run. Well, having that local control, we had that confidence. Further, we could guarantee that for the monies contributed, a full 100% of that would indeed go to these projects. We had no administrative costs, there were no salaries, nothing of that nature. And then the projects themselves were helpful to our individual churches. It worked both ways. It helped their environmental footprint, but it also helped them in their facilities themselves. And then it frankly just made good advertising for the environmental efforts to have this going on within the churches themselves and happening locally like this. And then lastly, it's not a game changer, but these projects do reduce the carbon emissions. So we felt good about it and still do. We generated flyers and posters and got those distributed to the churches. We had regularly attended the presbytery meetings with informational tables and displays. We did publications within the we did reports within the presbytery's publications. But all in all, this was basically a two-pronged effort. One is to generate contributions into the fund to maintain it. And then secondly, to stimulate these projects within the churches themselves for the good of the environment. Thus far, our efforts have been primarily projects within churches in LED lighting conversions, and that may not sound like a whole lot, but we had limited funds, but I think it was valuable. It's an effort that's easy to do. It's very visible, and we had good participation with it. We also these efforts were not just in the churches, but we also did a project at the Presbyterian Student Center associated with the university, and also with the Presbytery's Retreat Center on a lighting project down there. So we kind of run the course on that, and now we're at the stage of looking, well, what can we do next? Maybe a little bit more, a step up the ladder from that. And some things what we're kicking around, and what I'm particularly interested in hearing tonight is in the realm of solar at our churches. We were wondering if, given that the prices have come down so far, so fast on the panels themselves, if we might do some kind of joint project with a few churches on a starter systems at the churches that would be low cost and that could be added onto over time as money came in, and once people see what they can do. And would that be a good approach? So I'm kind of anxious to, some of you may be further along on that type of activity, and anxious to hear what may be some pros and cons of going down that path. So I guess in summary, we've done some good things by pooling together like this. We've been a fairly small events, you might say. It maybe hadn't taken off as grandly as we might have hoped, but we're still plugging away and still making progress after these several years. So I guess that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. And yes, Jay, I did see your question, and we will get to all of the questions at the end once all of our panelists have spoken. Kathy, did you get your presentation ready?
Okay. I got some IT support.
Great.
And thank you, Robert, for going first so I could get this up. I'm starting at the New York City Climate March in 2014 because that's where we started. And after that, a bunch of us got together in the Presbytery and said we need an environmental group in our Presbytery. We're in eight counties along both sides of the Hudson River in New York State. So we started a group, we called it HRP Green. One of the first things we did was we started having, somebody mentioned this, we started having community conversations at Presbytery meetings. And what you see here are 7 churches represented, and they're each talking about what they're doing. And we were doing everything environmental, we still do. And the actions taken by these churches went from one church stopped using styrofoam cups, one church LED lights were mentioned, zero waste, and one church had put solar panels on their roof. And we were very interested at that point in Solarize. So we did a panel with the 2 people on the right are solar providers, and the 3 people to the left were from congregations that had already installed solar panels. So we had a panel discussion that was, very nice. And then that woman, the solar providers, came to us and said, would you be interested in doing what's called a Solarize campaign in your entire presbytery? I suppose I should explain first. Robert said in Tennessee, you don't get a whole lot of support from the, I think I caught that as I walked back in, that there aren't a whole lot of campaigns. In New York State, we have something, the state runs something, and they were called Solarize campaigns. And they're usually done in 1 town or 2 towns. Where I live, my village and the one next, we did a Solarize campaign. And what happens is you vet the solar providers, which we did, and decide who you want to use. And then they give you a break on the price. It's sort of like group purchasing. So this was the first time this was tried with churches, and it was 8 counties. So we vetted the providers, and we decided to use 2. Westchester and Rockland are the 2 southern counties. They're the most populous and have the most churches. We did another provider for the other 6 counties that are more rural and spread out. And we got started. It was a collaboration between HRP Green and Solarize. Well, Solarize Westchester was really our sponsor. And we started something called Solarize Our Congregation. we went into, from January to June, most of our group, our steering committee, are clergy, and we did these presentations. The solar provider would go in, the woman who was helping us run the campaign, and usually me, because I'm not clergy, Sunday mornings after worship, and we'd go in and do presentations. And in 6 months, we went to 21 different congregations in 8 counties. And we did a lot of education, because what we would do is we'd publicize it so that people from surrounding churches could come and listen also, and learn about what was available. I'll show you these pictures. We took a picture at every single church we went to. We have 21 of these, but I won't make you look at all 21. What happened ultimately is we have 77 congregations in our presbytery. 6 congregations put solar panels on their roofs. There were many others that wanted to, but not everybody can have solar. You need to have a basically pretty new or almost new roof, for one thing. You can't have shade. One of the things we learned was that in the southern counties, in Westchester and Rockland, we pay high electricity bills here, so it made sense. In the northern and the west, the electric's not so expensive, so they may not have made, it wasn't as good a deal. We learned a lot. About 20 residential providers installed solar as a result of this, and one in. So basically, the southern provider did the best, because he got jobs for 5 big churches. The guys to the north, they got more residential, but it was a really good experience. We learned a lot. What we did was we went into those churches, but we also, the solar providers came to 2 Presbyterian meetings. The woman who was running the campaign did a community conversation at one of the Presbyterian meetings. And what was really important also was Jim Rissler from Presbytery Investment and Loan Program spoke to the Presbytery also at a meeting. And this was important because of financing. When we did the vetting, when Presbytery Investment, I'm not doing your presentation for you, but when Presbytery Investment and Loan came in, they quoted a price that the solar provider said, we don't know anybody who can give those interest rates. And I'm sure when the woman from PILP talks, she'll tell you why those, I think of the 6, 3 or 4 got their loans out of PILP. They all stayed under 100,000, and there's a reason for that. And I think that was a really important part of it, but I don't remember what the reason was. What happened and what was interesting, what came next was actually the most interesting. Here, I will go ahead. This is on one of our big churches getting solar. But what came next, and I didn't know this was going to happen, but phase 2, which has been really interesting, because in New York State, they're building solar farms all over the state. And there's a program, and it's been wonderful for all the churches that wanted solar that couldn't get it for any number of a dozen reasons. It's called Community Solar. And it is basically aggregate buying. You just sign up to be part of a solar farm. It's really simple enrollment. You get a immediate and ongoing 10% saving on your electric bill. You don't have to put any panels on your house of worship, no fees to join or cancel, simple enrollment, and benefiting local solar power. And this, we've got quite a number of churches. A number signed up through our program, which was through Solar Rise Westchester, but a lot of other churches signed up through programs in their own community. And we didn't really care who did it or why did, where they signed up. It didn't matter, just as long as the congregations were getting the benefits of this, the cost savings, but also buying into solar panels. So that has been, that was something we didn't expect from our Solarize program that came along after the fact. We started the solar program in 2018, the Solarize campaign, the putting the solar panels on the buildings. This the community solar, the aggregate buying is still going on. As in Westchester and Rockland, it's just within the last 6 months that they opened up the program. And this has been really good. So I think that's pretty much what I got. And I will close this now, because if I don't, I understand it will cause a problem. So if you lose me, it's because I hit the wrong I hit the wrong thing. Let's see, share screen.
I think we got it.
You got it? It's gone?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay.
Don't worry, Kathy. All right, thank you for that. Finally, we have Catherine Lynch.
Yes. Thank you, Jonathan. It's really a pleasure to be with all of you here. I really thank you for giving me this chance to talk about the investment and loan program. What I thought I'd do is start off by just giving you what our mission is and a brief overview of the investment and loan program, then describe our incentive loan program, which is includes the Restoring Creation loan program, which is about energy savings projects, and then describe a couple of really wonderful projects that I've had the opportunity to work having the Restoring Creation loan be involved with the solar panel projects. So for those of you who may not be familiar with the investment and loan program, our mission is to promote church growth by offering low-cost loans for Presbyterian building projects. And our larger loans are funded by an investment that we offer. It's referred to as a term note, very similar to a certificate of deposit. And our smaller loans, $450,000 and under, are funded through endowment funds, which reside with the Presbyterian Foundation. The smaller endowed loan program has been around since about the 1890s. And our larger investment and loan program was created in 1995 by the General Assembly. And it really was to ensure that of all sizes and types, including new church developments and some of our smaller racial ethnic churches, would have access to enough loan funds to do needed building projects for both new and existing facilities. So the incentive loan program came along when the investment and loan program started discounting a couple of their special projects, such as for accessibility, and the other one was for energy saving. And this energy saving incentive loan is referred to as Restoring Creation loan. And it's through that we've been able to partner with the Presbyterians for Earth Care. This energy saving loan program was created in 2015. And it was through the General Assembly's very strong desire to reduce fossil fuel concerns that the Presbyterian Foundation, they asked the Presbyterian Foundation and the Investment and Loan Program to partner to come up with a way to offer a loan program that would give the incentive to churches to explore projects that encourage proactive steps in advancing green initiatives. So with the energy savings loan program, the lower interest rates, which today begin at 2%, which is 1% below our traditional or our 3% rate with our traditional program, and the lower equity requirements, meaning the cash injection that the congregation has to put in, it's only 10% versus 20% with our regular program. And we offer more flexibility in loan terms that consider the length of return on investment. And as a result of this, congregations have been encouraged to renovate their buildings using these energy efficient products and renewable energy sources, saving on energy costs while helping to ensure that our church buildings are starting to more and more reflect who we are as a community of faith. So the projects that are included under the Restoring Creation Loan Program are certainly solar panel additions, energy efficient lighting systems, high efficiency heating and cooling systems, geothermal systems, and anything else that you can show us is going to help you save energy. Since its inception in 2015, we've dispersed about 12 million in loan funds through our endowed fund and our investor fund. And when I attended the 2019 Earth Care Conference in Stony Brook, as a representative of the investment and loan program, we were a sponsor and an exhibitor. And at that time, Presbytery of Hudson River had been working closely with the investment and loan program, and Kathy and I were able to do some joint presentations at that event, and got to hear about the Presbytery of Western North Carolina, where I am, that already has had an Earth Care team following kind of that same model of Presbyterian Hudson River and the solar projects. And there was a church as part of Presbytery of Western North Carolina, Earth Care team, Unity Presbyterian Church in Denver, North Carolina, that I had the opportunity to work with. And they completed their project in the summer of 2020. This is a fairly large size project, and they worked with a turnkey solar service out of Charlotte, North Carolina, Renew Energy. And in fact, Renew, from that, they produced this wonderful video, which I don't know if you've heard about it or not, but it's very professionally done, and it talked about what Unity Presbyterian did and how they worked with the investment and loan program. It has this beautiful footage and illustrates the very significant cost savings to the church by going solar, as well as how the project fit with their mission as a congregation. If anyone's interested in having access to that, you can just email me. I have a very easy email address, catherine.lynch@pcusa.org. And then in 2018, I worked with a much smaller church, Spencer Presbyterian in Spencer, West Virginia. They're only about 7 members, but they did a solar panel project, and they were featured in Outlook and Presbyterian Mission Agency Mission Yearbook. They worked with our program, so some of you probably already know about that one. But it was a very inspirational story about a very mighty congregation that is making a big difference in their community. They provide a daycare that is very much needed, and then they took on this solar project. So they worked very closely with Solar Hollow, which is out of Shepherdstown, West Virginia, to coordinate that project. So in closing, I just want to offer to you that we provide free consulting services to help calculate churches' financial ability to do loans, including those for energy savings projects. And the other thing, know that perhaps your church is interested in just doing a building project in general that has aspects of an energy savings project. And what we do in that case, we will take out those portions that are energy saving and put that at the reduced interest rate. So we can work deals all kinds of ways. Kathy mentioned about $100,000 cutoff, and what she was referring to, there isn't a cutoff per se, but the $100,000, if you can keep it at that amount or less, it can be an unsecured loan. So I think that was something that they really went for there in that situation with the New York churches. So I just wanted to clarify that, and I can answer any questions that we might have during the Q&A time.
Great. Thank you very much. Catherine, I just want to, because someone asked about your email in the chat, I just want to make sure that the link that I shared is correct. It's catherine.lynch@pcusa.org. Is that correct?
Correct.
Wonderful. All right. So I know thank you for sharing about that and for sharing about the two congregations. I've actually visited Unity Presbyterian in Denver before, so it's wonderful to hear they had a great that their project went smoothly.
Yeah, beautiful.
Now we'll open it up to some Q&A. And some of you have already posted some questions in the chat, so I'll just go down through those, and then if anyone has any other questions, we can go from there. So first off, from Jerry Hopkins, and I believe this is to Rob, what method did you use to determine the CFP contribution value? And
CFP,
yeah, I was gonna
carbon
say,
footprint value. Not sophisticated, I guess, in a word. We did have a form that was to be filled out that had called for various things, but it, in essence, it asked the church applying to try to quantify what the environmental impact, how many pounds of carbon dioxide this would be expected to reduce over a period of time. So that was embedded in the application, and we did not on our end generate the information. And Frank, we didn't particularly question what they had work that they had come up with on their end. Okay, hope that helps. If I understood the question.
Yeah, on the contribution side, when
Yes.
someone made a contribution,
Yes.
how did you calculate how
Right,
many?
right. We gave some examples, and I think I mentioned we had some flyers that we generated, and we gave both examples, some simple examples, and well as links to other sites that you could do a more sophisticated, detailed analysis of if you wanted to. I think what we particularly emphasized, thought was easy for people to understand, is what they might do to offset their vacations and the carbon impact of some, you might say, some of the sins out there, and what you can do to pay for that, so you can have your vacations a little more guilt-free or something. We weren't above doing something like that, and so we did examples. This is what the flying from here to Europe would be the environmental impact costs. I know those numbers are all over the map, but the point wasn't to do a sophisticated analysis, but to just show some examples to try to ballpark things and let people, here's what your typical house, probably under a electrical heated house and a gas heated house and that sort of thing. So we gave some ballpark information of what people might use if they wanted to offset certain parts of their livelihood. We recognized it was too big a thing to say, here's your total carbon footprint. That was too far to go on the first attempt.
Rob, do you have, maybe if you have access to all those resources, not now, obviously, you can try to scrounge them together, and then we could send them out for everybody to take a look at.
Okay.
Thank you. Another question I got in was from Bruce, and this is to Kathy about the I guess how the solar panel effort went, particularly around with church members and non-PCUSA churches. So I'll just read his question. How many church members in each church went solar after the church went solar? And how many non-Presbyterian churches in the area copied the PCUSA solar churches in their respective presbyteries? Do you have a ballpark estimate?
Interesting. We thought we'd get a lot of, because this campaign, the Solarize campaign, the original Solarize campaign was open to churches and anybody who was a friend of the church. So you didn't have to be a member. All you had to do is say you were a friend. We thought we'd get a lot more. We got about, in the entire presbytery, about 20 people went solar, individual homeowners went solar. I don't know how many did it after the campaign, but during the campaign, about 20. I do know there was a synagogue that was looking at the time, and the Unitarian Church was interested at the time, but I was focused on Presbyterians. Some other congregation or denominations looked. I don't know how. Actually, there was one other church that I know. So I know of 3 that were interested. We never opened up the whole Solarize campaign to all denominations. That's very different now with the aggregate buying, the community solar. That's open to everybody now. And if you ask me numbers on that, I can't tell you because we've had about a dozen sign up through our portal, but individual communities have their own, and our interest isn't in, we don't have allegiance to any one group. We just want people to get involved in this. So we're doing the publicity, and we're not keeping real good track of the numbers.
That might have answered some of the follow-ups. How many congregations have signed up for the solar co-op, and can individual church members
A
sign?
lot have. There is something, I know some churches have, what you pay a certain payment plans so that you don't get a real high bill one month and a low one next month. If you're on that, you're not, that's the one thing I think that makes a congregation ineligible. So some of the churches were not eligible for the aggregate buying through that, but otherwise a lot of them have done it.
Thank you. Another question that came in, this is to Catherine from John Hartman. What are the typical length of your loans for energy saving projects or solar?
Great question. Thank you for asking that. Yeah, for a project for 50,000 or less, the term is 10 years. For 50,000 to 100,000, it's 15 years. And any loan over 100,000 is 20 years. So it depends on the amount of the loan.
Thank you. A question from Jerry, and this might be to Kathy. I perhaps Catherine could answer it too. Or did any churches use a power purchase plan for installing their solar?
What's a power purchasing plan?
Jerry, if you want to unmute and explain. Jerry, you'll have to unmute yourself.
There's an agreement with an investor group where they pay for the installation, and then the church would then pay a lower rate on their electricity through that agreement.
Right, that was discussed, but not any of our churches did that. I know individuals who've done that, but none of the churches all bought it. Actually, we have 8 congregations now in this presbytery that have solar panels, and I think 4 of the 8 just paid outright for the panels. But no one's leasing or has gone into that kind of an agreement.
Another question from Bruce, and I think after this, we might have time for one more, and then we'll go into our breakout room. So to Catherine, does PILP provide advice for best practices in energy conservation in construction for all of your loans?
Well, is that from Bruce Gillette? Yeah. Bruce, we refer them to your church in Delaware because that has such great practices and it's all on your website. So yeah, actually we tend to refer them to churches that we've worked with. We don't advocate that we are experts on this. We've gotten some great experience now, and we can often funnel a church to a church that's doing it and has done some great things. Bruce's church, Limestone in Wilmington, Delaware, where I used to live, where he used to be, had this unbelievable set of information on their website. I haven't checked it recently.
Catherine, what I was referring to is not just the energy related projects like the solar project, but all construction. They have found if you're sensitive to energy conservation issues before construction, you can save the church a ton of money for the long haul in having lower energy bills. So I know you guys aren't experts, but it would be helpful on your website to link to organizations that do provide that kind of information, because it would save churches money as well as benefit the environment. And then that way, all the churches, whether they're solar, geo, or just going, purchasing through solar farms or whatever, they can all, by conserving energy from day one in their construction, really have a savings and help the environment.
Right. I like it. I will pass that on. That's a good idea.
All right. I know we had to go to our breakout rooms, but one quick question came in. And I think you could answer this together, Catherine. For loans that require security, could you explain how the loans are typically secured and what is the interest charged on the loans?
So on our reduced Restore and Creation Loan Program begins at 2%. If it's over 100,000, it would be secured by the church property. Is typically how that's done.
Right.
In most all the cases, yeah. It's the church property.
All right. Again, if you have any more questions for Catherine or for any of our panelists, and you need their contact information, please let us know. Dennis has shared the breakout room questions in the chat, which should be accessible even as we go into our little groups. And so we'll scatter for the next 15 or so minutes. Sue, I believe, is on that right now. Welcome back, everybody. I'm guessing everybody is back by now. And I hope that you all had some good conversations about solar energy, about promoting some small loans or promoting some big loans in your presbytery. So we'll just, I have a list of the breakout rooms with the members. So if someone just wants to chime in, give a quick summary of what we all talked about, what you all talked about. And then we'll just begin to wrap up. So the first breakout room 1, with Consuelo Walker, Holly Hallman, Margaret Vernon Sherwood, apologies if I mispronounced it, and then whoever's account is the Manila Calhoun Foothills Presbytery. If someone wants to just chime in about what you all spoke about really briefly. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so in our group, we were reminded that New Mexico has lots of wind and lots of sunshine, and that there are numbers of organizations pushing for solar installation. A key technical issue is batteries. Batteries that and battery technology to save energy. Now they have batteries now that work up to 3 days, so that helps extend the use of power that they have so much of. Also on the rise is roofs that are being made. The material for the roof is in fact a solar panel. So when you build a house, you don't put on a regular roof and then add solar panels. You just put on the roofing material and it is a solar panel. So that's going to also really take things to scale. A developer could do 100 houses and they'd all be solar to begin with. So that's another piece of technology to keep an eye on, solar panels. And electric cars. A church in Washington State is installing a charging station for electric cars. I guess it must be like at the church parking lot. So a lot of things going on, but to keep an eye on new technologies is really important. Don't just assume single house solar panels. There's many more options. I'm complete.
Great, thank you very much. Breakout room 2 with Catherine Lynch, Karen, Kathy Dean, Nancy Pienta, and Robert McKeehan. Again, if anyone wants to just chime in, give a quick summary of what you all talked about. Nancy, I see your lips moving, but you're muted.
Well, first of all, there was the New Yorkers, and we have a good program with the community solar. So we kind of pat ourselves on the back, kind of felt sorry for Robert in Tennessee and Karen in Michigan. But the one thing that Kathy could probably explain better than I was the community solar farms that they have. A lot of times they donate like $100 back to you because you signed up for it. And then members in your church can sign up for the solar farm, and that the solar farm will donate $100 to your church. Is that right, Kathy? I don't know if I said it right.
You said it perfect. I left that part out, and that's an important part. Yeah, once you sign up, a donation will be made to whomever you want it made to, and it's around $100, I believe. So if you get 10 people from a congregation to sign up, the church can get $1,000. But that's in New York State. If you're not in New York State, it's not available. It's available in Nancy.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
And we talked about alternative energy. We talked about heat pumps also, which is another thing that's being pushed out in New York State a lot, which is it's basically air conditioning and heating electric. We've got them in our house, and I love them.
And Catherine said that those kinds of things, if you replace your furnace or anything that's going to be more energy efficient, the loans are available for that too. If I got that correct.
Yes, you did get that correct. Anything that you can show us that you're going to be saving energy with, whether it's a new HVAC system or like with the heat pumps, anything like that, we would look at and say, yeah, that works for our program.
Great. Well, thank you for that, for reporting back. Breakout room 3, which is Debbie, Joe Schwartz, Ronald Fayer, and Richard Person. If anyone wants to quick chime in.
I'll chime in. Went through the questions and no one really had any, didn't know of any solar purchasing plans with their presbytery or community. But Ronald Fair mentioned the Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake, which encompasses 6 states and 18 million people. And it was I guess it was a loan program, is that right? And specified or specifically for energy conservation projects. Rick talked about he has a loan, or his church has a loan right now with the Presbytery. And even though I don't think it was part of the, what was it called? The Restoring Creation loans, but there's many factors on the project that probably would apply. So I don't know how all that works out, but he does have a loan now with Presbyterian Church. As far as promoting Restoring Creation loans, we talked about, if we had successful projects, we all have newsletters and we all have Presbyterian meetings and, just making some presentations there and getting the word out.
Great.
That's it.
Thank you very much. Breakout room 4 was Bruce, Jane, Scott, Sue, and Manley.
So the one exciting thing that we heard about was that the church that Catherine had mentioned, Limestone in Delaware, the way that was funded was partly through the groups that use the church. They did fundraising for the solar panels. Apparently there was a lot of excitement about this project, and they even got some funding from the community. So that really shows a lot of support there. People were just really, really anxious to have a church with solar panels on it. And the other thing is that you could ask other churches to chip in. I don't think this happened with that church, but it's a way that churches in the Presbytery could support another church. And that's all from us.
I know Bruce just put some resources in the chat if anyone is interested in those. Breakout room 5 with Aaron, Jerry, John, and Manley again, though I suppose that might have been some confusion with computer screens. So if
We
any-
did have Manly in our group.
Okay.
So of the four of us, two people in our group are involved in donor LLCs that they've set up. And that way they can maximize the tax credits. And either it was Jerry and John. So if either one of you want to elaborate on that a little bit.
John's going to the.
Well, this is John. I was just saying that my wife and I set up an LLC here in Houston, primarily working with churches here in Houston and also in Austin, to provide a financing vehicle for solar that allows us to take advantage of both the accelerated depreciation and the investment tax credit. So it's another approach. We typically do it through longer term operating leases, like maybe a 15-year lease.
Great. Anything else? I think that might be it. All right. And then breakout room group 6 was myself, Dennis, Joan, and Rob. And I'll just report in really quickly. Unfortunately, none of us were quite familiar about what Presbyterian level loan programs or solar panel group purchasing plans there were. But some exciting news that did come in was that Jones Church recently finalized or is in the process of finalizing some solar panel installation that they fundraised for in-house. And so thankfully they will be starting up with that process soon. And she's excited to be a beacon of solar panel and solar energy awareness for their local area, and hopes that it'll be a way to get the conversation started with the broader community. So with that, thank you everybody for chiming in and sharing about what you all talked about. I know we are at 9, so I will take the time. Are there any last questions or comments that anyone would like to bring up before?
Just a comment, Jonathan, really appreciated your devotion that was in the newsletter.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so for those of you that did not know or are not a part of our newsletter, PC Presbyterians for Earth Care releases an annual Lenten devotional, and I was in charge of putting that together. And so if you're interested, you can go to the website and go into the resources section, and you should be able to find that. It was a wonderful time talking to a bunch of people. Consuelo.
Yeah, my husband just advised me that solar windows are coming in.
It's a new technology, and it's taken them, they've been at this for quite a few years. They're beginning to sell a product now. It's designed for large buildings, really.
Who's building it?
What?
Who's building it? Tesla?
No, I don't know the company. Well, there's a company called Solar Window. And it got my attention. In fact, I invested in it a little bit. Dangerous thing to do, but I did. But I think in large buildings, it may be a very good solution if you have large windows like in a skyscraper or even a gymnasium or who knows what. And the price of it seems to be jumping. So they're in business now.
Well, thank you for pointing that out. Maybe we can all keep an eye on it as something for the future. I just want to take the moment to our next Zoom call, the next Greening Your Presbytery call will be next month. Will be Tuesday, March 9th, same time. And you all will get a link in your email inbox with that. And we will send out some more information about the topic once that gets sooner. I do want to take the moment to ask if there are anyone that knows that they'll be there. If anyone would like to volunteer for our opening and closing prayers. Consuelo, yes.
I'll volunteer for the opening.
Opening, thank you very much. Would anyone like to follow that and volunteer for the closing? If not, we can circle back to that. I'm sure Jane will reach out to someone and get that squared away. All right, and then finally, a request that came in from Bruce through the chat for the sake of some good PR going forward, because I heard that there is some last minute people that came in and saw the group. And so in the spirit of inviting more people in, Bruce suggested that we all do some kind of group photo. So I'll just do a screenshot of my screen of the people that I can see. So if you would like, if you don't want to be in the photo, I suppose turn off your video so that we don't see you. But I will go to the count of 3, and then I'll press the button, and we'll just kind of save this snapshot of people that are all here. Hope that sounds all good to you all. All right. So on the count of 3, I'll go 1, 2, 3, cheese. All right. I got the screenshot, so be on the lookout for that in your next email. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to our wonderful panelists. And at this point, I would like to invite Nancy for our closing prayer.
Let us pray. Holy Creator, Lord of all seasons and times in our world and in our lives, we thank you for the beauty and order you bring to our lives and to our seasons. As we leave this time together tonight, we ask that you hold each one here in the warmth and strength of your love as we seek to live in your way of truth, courage, and wisdom. Amen.
Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a good rest of your evening, and we'll see you in a month.